Thursday night is the Canadian Mortgage Awards.
And you've won many of those.
I have won 5 Canadian Mortgage Awards in my career over the last 17 years.
Yeah.
And I had an early nomination this year as well. But, I made the decision personally that, it's time for a bit of a break. I want some other people to win. It's nice to have some competition out there.
Yeah.
And, I'm going because I want to support everyone who's nominated. Yeah, I've been nominated and I've won so many times that it's nice to, support the rest of the community. And there's a lady in my office, Leanne Miles. She's up for a CMA. She's up for a Woman of Excellence. So I'm going to be there supporting her. I'm going to be rocking the red carpet. I've never seen a red carpet I didn't like. And we'll get some nice photos. And it'll be nice to see people that you don't see all year round.
Absolutely. So when it comes to mortgage lending, there must be it's probably a smaller community than you would think. Even nationally, there would be a pretty small community of mortgage brokers like yourself.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a smaller community, as you can imagine, compared to people that maybe work at bank branches. There's much fewer mortgage brokers across the country. Yeah. And it's nice that I've been able to, compete on a national level here from Halifax. Who would think that you can compete with people in Toronto and Vancouver? Our mortgage amounts are just so much smaller. But the one thing that we have that they don't have, we have a lot of units. And you know what? It's a lot easier, I think, to be a big fish here in Halifax, regardless of what industry you're working in. And I think that we do a lot of things very special here. Yeah. And, we build a fence around our clients, and we're really trying to provide that expert advice. And we're not transactional. I think when you're in a smaller community like we are in Halifax, it's a lot easier to build relationships and build relationships with our clients and business partners. Yeah. And we've been able to do that. I've been doing this for 17 years. So
yeah, absolutely. So to that, for our brand new listeners, because we got new listeners all the time, which we greatly appreciate online and listening to us over the airwaves, a bit about what you guys do.
I'm a mortgage broker. We have an office in Dartmouth and in downtown Halifax. We funded over $1.3 billion in mortgages, over 5,000 transactions. And, it's a really interesting business. And it's a business that is always changing and evolving between things with the Bank of Canada and the federal government and bank lenders. Every day is a bit of a different day, Dodd. And, I think that's really interesting. And there's so many nuances in mortgage lending. I know I keep on saying this, but every file is like a snowflake. We just came through the winter and now we're going into the spring, which is typically the busiest market of the year for real estate and for mortgage lending. It'll be very interesting to see what happens, I think, over the next few weeks. I've heard reports that we're seeing more and more listings here in Halifax.
Yes.
I think it's great news for people that are going to be buying a home this year and this spring season. And, we're here for it. We have a lot of people pre-approved. We have a lot of people that are out there and shopping. And we do so many different transactions. We do purchases, obviously, and we do refinances and renewals. And we get involved in a lot of different types of mortgage lending situations, from home equity lines of credit and things like that. So every day is different for me.
Yeah.
And you know what? I really like that. Every day I don't know what I'm getting into. Yeah. I obviously know the things that I need to do, and I have a list of tasks that I have to get through. But even like what happens within the day is really, really interesting. Before we started our show, Todd and I were talking. You've been in the media industry a long time.
25 years or more.
Right?
Yeah.
And I've been doing this for 17 years. And, there certainly are times where it might become monotonous.
Right.
You're doing the same thing kind of over and over again. But, the one thing that I really look forward to, doesn't matter like when it is, I look forward to doing this show.
Oh, is that right?
It's one of the things that I look forward to. It's something that's different. It challenges me. We have to do, we have to do some prep. I'm reading news stories all month long. Yeah. We're getting some inquiries from listeners, and we actually had an inquiry we're gonna talk about a little bit later. One of our listeners wanted us to kind of do more of a deep dive into a subject, so we're gonna do that.
And we can do that in the next segment.
Yeah, we are for sure.
Okay, so let's kind of talk a little bit about the news cycle, even though it'll be somewhat dated with the nature in which we're recording. But the Bank of Canada maintained its key interest rate last week. That was anticipated that it would do so. But what are they saying about moving forward about next month? What are you hearing? Is this the trend now, or what do you think is going to happen?
I think many economists were projecting that we were going to be in a plateau situation with the Bank of Canada. Some economists think that it's, signaling that we might see rate cuts as soon as maybe even before the end of the year. Something maybe going into the early next year, we're going to start seeing some rate cuts. But some economists think that it might be signs that if we see even a tinge or a little twinge of inflation going up, that they may increase the key overnight rate. Some economists think that there may be room for another 25 or 50 basis points of increase. I don't know. Yeah. I think we're in a little bit of a wait and see situation. A plateau is good for borrowers. they can at least make some plans.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot easier to say, okay, we're good here for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
The interesting thing that the deputy governor of the Bank of Canada said, borrowers that are going to be entering into these mortgage products need to start looking at longer-term financing. So does that say longer-term fixed? Does taking a longer fixed rate, like a 5-year fix, make sense?
5's the max, though, right?
Can you
go longer?
We're doing up to a 10-year fix.
You go 10 fixed.
Yep,
right,
we can do up to a 10-year.
Right.
We're doing fewer 10-year fix than any other product.
Right.
I would say the most popular is a 5-year.
Yeah.
And then maybe the second most popular is a 3-year or 4-year.
Right.
Very rarely are we doing a 1 or a 2-year.
What about
That's
variable?
for a specific use case.
Can you do a 10-year variable?
5-year variable.
That's it, eh?
Yeah, 5-year variable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, different rates and different rate products are different for different borrowers. A lot of borrowers right now are choosing to do a 3 or a 4-year fix, depending on kind of rate promos, rate product, their risk tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
Because, the rates are high. What
Right.
will happen in a couple of years? I think they're going to be lower. When are they going to be lower? We don't have a crystal ball. But, I think that we're going to see rates soften, especially if we go into a recession type situation. What's interesting is we still added a lot of jobs in Canada.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a good news sign in terms of inflation. And the two things that are really still very high in terms of inflation, food inflation. We're seeing that right now at the till when you go to the grocery store, and housing inflation. Obviously, that's being driven by the Bank of Canada, the lack of supply in terms of homes for people to buy, and the lack of rental supply.
Yeah. So when it comes to housing, the federal government in the last budget they made no initiative towards affordable housing or housing projects or whatever. What are your thoughts fundamentally on governments getting into the business of housing? I'm talking about even potentially a crown corporation of some sort. What are your thoughts on that?
You know what? We are in a housing crisis.
Yes.
And in Halifax, but really across the country, in many different markets, there's a big shortage in housing. Government is going to need to get into the business of housing to help fix this housing supply. Part of that is going to be policy.
Yes.
And I think part of that may be some crown corporations that are going to, work with different levels of government to really bring housing supply to the people that need it.
Right.
And, we're not just talking about low-income housing here, Todd.
Nope.
I think all levels of government really need to work on the supply, and that might be incentivizing builders. It may be incentivizing buyers to buy. There's so many different programs that might potentially work to get more housing starts going. The nice thing in Nova Scotia, we have a lot of land.
Yeah.
We have a lot of land to build on. It's just going to be the different levels of government working together to obviously get those shovels in the ground.
But the other point of that is we do have a lot of land, but then there's also this move to have transportation streamlined and fewer vehicles on the road. And if people are working in the downtown corridor, we want this sprawl out to Bedford and these places.
Sprawl is expensive.
Yeah.
Sprawl is expensive, and urban sprawl is not what we want here in Halifax, but we want the density. And you know what? Our municipality here in Halifax has worked towards that. They've really identified these corridors where the housing can be more dense. And we're already seeing developments getting going along, for example, like Roby Street. I think that's great news. It's a great transportation corridor, and it will be great news for, residents here in Halifax when we start seeing some of those starts.
Okay, we can continue to discuss that and lots more. Mortgage 101. We'll be right back.
If you've liked what you've heard and you want to learn more, feel free to visit us online at teamclinton.ca.